Good day, everyone. So, I am Adrian Brado. My topic is all about the module. So, in the lesson 2, we have a lot of topics which are the history, philosophy, and of objectives of imprisonment and the development of prisons. So, the Sing Sing prison is full Sing Sing Correctional Facility, maximum security prisons located in Ossining, New York, in use since 1826. It was one of the oldest penal institutions in the United States. It also among the most well-known in our country, especially notable for its harsh condition in the 19th and 20th century. So the next is the program effective in Sing Sing prison. So first is alcohol and substance among treatment programs. Addictions treatment medication. Second is hunger management programs. Is the process of learning to recognize signs that you're becoming hungry and taking action to calm down and deal with situation. Family development programs. It stands for the right of your children and their families to live in communities and place concern for child's health, well-being, and high-quality education. Guidance counseling services refers to services intended to assist individuals. Library and law library services used to comply with Supreme Court orders. Recreational programs. It helps the inmates to practice in daily cosmetics. Sex offender treatment programs allows offenders immediate feed about their behavior and treatment progress. Temporary release programs refers to programs which allows release for prisoners to unlimited time. Trauma programs. It emphasizes safety and stability. Transitional service program assist in preparing individuals from return to their community. Veteran services committed to addressing through collaborations with partners and federal, state, and local levels. Volunteer services and programs is an interesting and satisfying way to give back to the community. Notorious is to be well known for something bad. So the Green Haven Prison is a maximum security prison in New York. The prison is located in the Burke Dutchess County. The New York State Department of Department of Corrections 1258. This prison housed New York executions chamber during the state briefly had the death penalty in the late 1980s. Institutions for the confinement of conducts and detentions of awaiting trial include a variety of national prisons and penalty forms as well as numerous small local jails and lock-ups. In general, the national prisons house work serious offenders, and these serving short-term sentences were held in local facilities. Thomas Moth Osborne, born in September 23, 1859. Auburn, New U.S., died October 20, 1926. Auburn, American penologist. Durations of self-help programs for prisons through mutual welfare leagues functions as a model for the humanitarian programs of later penologists. Osborne served 2 terms on the U-Boat. Served as Sing Warden in 1914 to 15 and 1916, but his immediate sweeping changes were assault and he resigned under instant political. During his tenure, however, the first psychological work with more reforms inmates began, were instituted under Edward Lewis, who serves as warden from 1920 to 1941. He notably improved the living conditions within the prisons and allowed inmates to participate in sports. Lewis Edward Lewis, born September 13, 1883. Elmira, NY, New York, or in U.S., died April 23, 1947, Garrison in New York. U.S. penologist who introductions of novel penal administrative rule. Assuming the office of Warden of Sing Sing State Prisons, Ossining, New York, in 1920, Lewis instituted such as reforms as the establishment of theatrical film showing and athletics, the installations of workshop, safety devices, and provisions of radio earphones for each cell. So the Sing Sing prison cell. A cell at Sing Sing prison, Ossining, New York, C. 1910 to 15. Library of Congress, Washington, D.C. in 1901. The resident of Sing Sing Village changed its name to they wanted to distance, if not disassociate, the town from the notorious prisons for the same reason. In 1970, the state renamed the prisons Ossining. The U-Boat system, located in U-Boat, New York, opening in 1816, it established a disciplinary and administrative system based on silence, corporal punishment, and congregate group labor. Corporal punishment, the inflictions of physical pain upon the person's body as the punishment for the crime or infraction. Corporal punishment includes flogging, beating, branding, and use of the stock and pillory. In a broad sense, the term also physical disciplining of children in school, at the home. The congregate group labor. These include homeless shelter groups homes, architecture and routine in newborn prison. Became the model for prisons throughout the United States. In the early 20th century, many Americans believed that industrialization's undramatic demographic, economic, and political upheavals quasi-military routine. It is a kind of trend. Pennsylvania system, penal method based on the principles that solitary confinement factors penitence and encouragement reformation. The idea was advocated by the Philadelphia Society for alleviating the miseness of public prisoners, whose most active members were Quakers. In the 1824, the Eastern State Penitentiary in Cherry Hill, Philadelphia, applied this so-called separate philosophy. Prisoners were kept in solitary confinement in cells 16 feet high and near 12 feet long, and 7.5 feet wide, 4.9 by 3.7. Exercise yard completely enclosed to prevent contact among prisoners was attached to each cells. Prisoners saw no except institutions offers and solitary penitence, however, was soon modified to include the performance of work such as shoemaking or weaving. The Peninsula System spread institute was too costly and had the deleterious effects on the minds of the prisoners. The Pennsylvania system was supposed was superseded in the Pennsylvania. These are the 5 deployment of punishment. First, incapacitation. Second, deterrence. Third is retribution. Fourth is rehabilitation. Fifth is restoration. So the first is the incapacitation. It seeks to prevent future crimes by physically moving criminals away from society. This punishment can be traced to ancient times. Terence and Hong Lu write in punishment. So this is the Terence myth. Receive his Asan yung receive? Page niya din. Page din. Terence Smith ni siya din. Terence Smith received his PhD in sociology from Washington State University and currently a professor of criminal justice at University Nevada, Las Vegas. Terence Smith, he was the author of several books and research articles in the areas of criminal victimization, theories of crime, and criminal processing. And also, Hong Lu is a professor of the criminal justice department at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Hong Lu, her areas interests include the comparative criminology, court and sentencing, death penalty, and sociology of law. Second is deterrence. The goal of deterrence is persuade citizens and possible offenders or reoffenders to confirm the rules of law. Myth, myth and law explain the four types of deterrence are generally recognized. Specific deterrence analyzes how effective punishment is on an individual's future behavior. So, general deterrence seeks to understand how individual punishment can deter others from committing crimes. Marginal deterrence seeks to reconcile how effective the different types of punishments are as either specific or general deterrence. Partial deterrence refers to situations in which the threat of penalty has some deterrent value even when someone engages in illegal behavior, for example, a criminal. Simply robbing a victim instead of also causing physical harm. The effectiveness of deterrence as a criminal punishment is difficult to access because people may have the law for other reasons that may be challenging to track, such as religious or moral. Belief, physical, belief, physical incapacitation, or lack of opportunity. Retribution, as one of the oldest forms of punishments, retribution has roots in the Judeo Christian traditions in justice and her book Criminal Law. Storms explains that retributions prevent crime by giving victims or society a certain sense of satisfaction that a defendant has been punishment appropriately informs the belief the criminal justice system is working effectively. Modern examples of retributions include the widespread practice of imposing fines, as well as enforcing mandatory sentencing policies for certain offenses under the law. As the effective punishments, retribution has been criticized as being overly rigid and limited in its capacity to change societal behavior. However, it's remained popular. So the fourth is rehabilitation. A common prison's policy in America up until the 1970s. Rehabilitation focuses on helping criminals and prisons overcome the barriers that lead them to committing criminal acts. This includes developing occupational skill, as well as resolving psychological issues such as drug addictions and aggressions, explains the American Psychological Associations, or APA, considered the opposite of the retribution and or the ultimate purpose of rehabilitation is offenders back into the society. The APA reports that in examination massive data, individualized approaches to crime, complemented with community-based approaches, can prove effectively in reducing offender recidivism. The tendency of the convicted criminal to re-offender. Restoration, an act of restoring or condition of being restored. So the restorations is a radically different approach to criminal punishment. The goal of restoration is for the offender to make direct amends to both the victim and the community in which crime was committed. Although the relatively new practice in modern times, the concept of restoration justice can be found in early legal system of Western Europe, Asians, Hebrew justice, and pre-colonial African societies. During the process of restoration, victims initiate the process or a process in which both they and the offender Mito shares feelings and concerns. The dialogue offers victims the opportunity to be heard and offenders to make amends. The received forgiveness, restoration's justice is often used in crimes involving youth offender. Age of Enlightenment. Personalities behind corrections institution. Caesar Beccaria. In full, Caesar Bonisana Marquez de Beccaria. Born March 15, 1738, Milan, Italy. Dead on November 28, 1794, Milan. Italian criminologist and economist whose date daily 5, 1564. Inked in France G.A. Fear, Crimes and Punishments, 1880, was celebrated volume on the reform of criminal justice. Beccaria was the son of Milanese aristocrat of modest from the early age. He displayed the essential traits of his character, a highly volatile temperament result in periods of enthusiasm followed by depressions and inactivity. He was reserved and somewhat taciturn in his personal and family relationships. At the age of 8, he was sent to the Jesuit schooling or Barma later described the educations he received as unshifting to the development of human feeling. Although he revealed a mathematical aptitude, later in his student they give indications of the remarkable intellectual achievements that were soon to follow in 1758. He, in 1960, Beccaria proposed marriage to the 16-year-old Teresa Blasco, encountered the obdurate oppositions of his father. The following year, the marriage took place without parental consent, and the young couple began their life together in poverty. The breach between father and son was ultimately repaired, and Beccaria and his wife were received into the family home. In 1762, a daughter and the first of his 3 children was born. Aristocrat, one who was bearing the viewpoint typical of aristocracy. So Marquis of Beccaria Bonicia, Italian economist and proponent of judicial reform. Cesare Beccaria was the author of the most famous Italian work of the Enlightenment on crimes, and he was born into the noble family of the state of Milan, which was part of the Eustian Habsburg Empire, and was schooled by the Jesuit in Parma. After receiving his law degree from the University of Pavia in 1758, he returned to live in Milan. Beccaria's 20th was where the most important decade in his intellectual and emotional life. Noble family is a family who are related to the royal family, but they are ranks below the king. Liturgy. A cause of you feel sleepy or fatigued and sluggish. It also can be related to an underlying physical or mental. Anxiety is your body's natural response to stress. It is a feeling of fear or apprehensions about what what's to come. Bust. Lie exposed to warmth and light. Typical from the suns for relaxations and pleasure. Despondent. In low spirits from loss of home or current. Cesar Lombroso. Cesar Lombroso is a father of the modern criminology. Theory of the born criminal dominated thinking about criminal behavior in the late 90th and November 6, 1835, October 9, 1909, was the founder of the Italian School of Positivist Criminology. He rejected the establishment classical school, which held the crime was the characteristic trait of human nature and the rational choices were the foundations of behavior. Lombroso is a specific approach and concepts drawn from Psychonogmy. William Conqueror. William I, by name William the Conqueror, or William the Bastard, or William of Normandy. French Guillaume E. Normandy, born c. 1028. Palais, Normandy, France, dead in September 9, 1857. Normandy was as a William from 1066, one of the greatest soldiers and rulers of the Middle Ages, that made himself the mightiest noble in France, and then changed the course of England history by his conquest of the country. Enrico Ferri. Enrico Ferri was born in Lombardy in 1858 and worked first as the lecturer and later as a professor of the criminal law, having spared time as a student of Cesar Lombroso. While Cesar Lombroso researched anthropological criminology, Ferri focused more on social and economic influence on the criminal and crime rates. Ferri's research led him postulating jury calling for crime prevention methods to be the ministry or law enforcement. As criminals after their crimes had taken place. He became the founder of the Positivist School, and he researched psychological and social positivism as opposed to the biological positivism of Lombroso. Next is the Clifford Show, who was an American sociologist and criminologist. He was a major figure in the Chicago School of Sociology during the 1930s and 1940s, and he is considered to be one of the most intellectual figures in American criminology. This work in juvenile delinquency toward the discipline of sociology and away from the psychology and psychiatry. Jones and Mackey's work span three general areas studying the geography variations in rates of juvenile delinquencies and the development of the Chicago area. Project a delinquency prevention program in the Chicago area. The two studies published by Snow. The juvenile delinquency is the act of committing a crime at the very young age or is a young person's, particularly as a teenager, under the age of 18 who breaks the state of federal law by committing the crime. So that's all. I hope that you will learn about my topic. Thank you.